So I've listened to a lot of music this year, specifically with with me starting to do these album reaction videos on this channel. Um, I've listened to a lot of albums this year, and a lot of good albums. So I wanted to do this quick video here. I wanted to rank my top 5 albums that I've listened to this year so far. So these aren't just albums that have come out this year. These are albums that I've just simply listened to this year. So it could be something from, who knows, the 90s, something from 2010. It doesn't matter. It's just albums that I've listened to this year. And once again, this is completely just my opinion. These are completely subjective. So if you feel like one of these is too high, that's okay. You can disagree with me in the comments, but just know it's just my opinion. And these are some of the favorite albums that I've listened to this year. I'm going to do some honorable mentions first. We're going to be starting off here with The College Dropout, the debut from Kanye West, the legendary Kanye West. I actually listened to this on the channel. If you guys haven't seen that reaction, go check it out. This is probably, would I say, a top 5 Kanye album for me? Yeah, I would say, definitely a top 5 Kanye album, maybe even top 3. I would go top 4. Top 4 Kanye album. I'd probably go number 4. Great production, great beats, and I feel like with this album, this was when Kanye was actually kind of relatable and seemed kind of like a person that you could actually relate to, and a real person to some extent. You had great tracks on there, absolute classics like Through the Wire, absolute classic. You had Jesus Walks as well. The production on Jesus Walks is insane, and a bunch of other just great songs on there. Great use of sampling stuff, and when this album came out in 2004, there was really nothing like it. So a really groundbreaking album from Kanye. So yeah, one of the honorable mentions, Kanye West's The College Dropout. Another honorable mention here is Smiling with No Teeth. You guys, I don't know if you guys have heard of this. You might not have, because it's not the most popular thing, but Genesis Owusu, Smiling with No Teeth. This guy is an up-and-coming artist out of Australia, actually. And his debut, is it his debut album? I'm pretty sure it's his debut album, Smiling with No Teeth. Great project, 15 songs, 53 minutes, just a great mix of different genres. I loved the more jazzy, funk, soul, R&B type cuts that he had on here, but he also had some cuts that were definitely inspired by Kendrick Lamar's To Pimp a Butterfly as well. And you can definitely tell that this guy's inspired by the Kanyes, the Kendricks, and people like that. So this is a great album, using the black dog as a metaphor for his depression, Smiling with No Teeth. You kind of get the idea of what this album's about in the title of it there. Great cover. Love the songs on this thing. Some really catchy hooks as well. And just a really impressive debut from Genesis Owusu. So shout out to Genesis. Loved this album. All right, the next honorable mention here is the Seer from Swans. Now, I just got into Swans this year, and the Seer was the first project that I listened to from Swans. And I gotta say, this is definitely the inferior of the 2 that I've listened to from Swans. You'll see the other one on this list later. But it is still an absolute behemoth of a listen. This thing is almost pretty much 2 hours long, only 11 songs, but it's 2 hours long. There's a track on here that is 32 minutes, experimental rock, just a great listen. The builds of these songs is absolutely insane. If you've never listened to Swans, it's gonna be kind of difficult to get into them at first because they have such long songs, but you have to just be patient. You have to just let these songs build, and the climaxes that these songs reach, especially on this album, is just absolutely insane. Some just brain-bending walls of sound that come at you in this album, and there's still moments of beauty on this thing, like Song for a Warrior. That's one of my favorite cuts, only 4 minutes, a nice little interlude type piece, you could say. Lunacy is a great starter with those drums. Lunacy, it's just amazing. 93 Ave Blues is a really unsettling piece where you have these really dissonant strings that come in at the beginning. Just a great album. My introduction to Swans, I love it. All right, I gotta talk about these a little bit faster because these are still only the honorable mentions. We got Roadrunner from Brockhampton. Brockhampton is probably one of my favorite musical groups right now. Obviously, the boy band Brockhampton coming back with Roadrunner following Ginger. A lot of people didn't like Ginger. I kind of like Ginger, but Roadrunner was definitely superior to Ginger in my opinion, and superior to Iridescence. I just loved how they combined that more mellow vibe that Ginger had with that colorful production and off-the-wall vocal delivery and beats that they had on Iridescence as well. They did a really good job in this album, in my opinion, of combining that. And don't let me forget to mention Joba as well. This was definitely Joba's album, obviously with the passing of his dad. Rest in peace. Prayers out to Joba. But yeah, Joba just poured his heart and soul into this album. Songs like The Light were mind-blowing on impact. Windows is a great 6-minute track with fun verses from pretty much every member, I'm pretty sure. The Light Part 2 is beautiful. Don't Shoot Up the Party is a classic Brockhampton banger. And there's just so many good songs on here. The only ones I don't really like are I'll Take You On and Old News. Those just don't really do it for me. But everything else, quality songs from Brockhampton, and definitely a step up from Ginger, in my opinion. All right, next up we got Schlegenheim, however you want to pronounce it. This is the debut album from post-punk, experimental rock type band Black Midi, hailing from the UK. Yeah, this was my introduction to Black Midi. Black Midi's become one of my favorite things this year. And they're just super talented. This unsettling style of post-punk that they have, I love the vocal delivery, I love just the instrumentation, I love the builds and the falls and the crashes and the more chill, mellow moments in this album. Of Schlegenheim to BM, those two tracks there, that 10-minute span in this album is one of the best things I've ever heard, especially the transition between those two tracks. And BM, what a magnificent purpose. Jordy's delivery on that thing is beautiful. I love it. I love the off-the-wall delivery and the melodies and the rhythms and the harmonies. Everything these guys do musically interests me, so I definitely had to put this as an honorable mention. Schlegenheim. All right, next up we have a pretty different album. This is Promises from Floating Points, who's an electronic music producer, I'm pretty sure. Pharoah Sanders, who's a sax player. And the London Symphony Orchestra. I found this through Anthony Fantano. So shout out to Fantano. I wouldn't have known about this album if it weren't for him. This thing is a beautiful album, the most beautiful thing I've listened to this year. The tracks, they're not even like separate tracks. It's really, there's different movements, but you really have to go into this thing thinking of it as a whole piece. Some standouts here, obviously movement 6 is absolutely beautiful. The string sections on that piece are haunting, yet beautiful at the same time, and I love the use of this same kind of chord that goes throughout the whole thing, and they kind of build on this chord throughout the whole thing as well. Beautiful sax playing. There's some weird vocals at one point, I believe in movement 4. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's in movement 4, and just the combination of the symphony, Pharoah's sax playing, and Floating Points and his electronic kind of production that creates this just beautiful ambient atmosphere. Definitely the most beautiful thing I've heard this year. All right, and this is the last honorable mention. I know there's a lot of honorable mentions, but we got The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. This is another album that I reacted to on the channel, and I think that this is one of my favorite R&B type albums ever that I've listened to. Lauryn Hill, obviously the legendary Lauryn Hill, 16 songs, hour 17. You have so many hits on here, so many catchy songs, but you also have so many beautiful songs like Tell Him, the title track, the emotion in this album, the themes of religion, love. It's just beautiful. Lauren's voice is amazing, and yeah, I just love the old school production. The drums are super crispy throughout this whole thing. Beautiful guitar playing throughout the whole thing as well, and just a beautiful album. Beautiful album. I love it. So we're done with my honorable mentions now. We're going to go into the top 5 now. At my number 5 spot, I have Cavalcade from Black Midi. This is the follow-up to Schlegenheim by, once again, Black Midi, one of my favorite groups or bands that I've discovered this year. And this is a 8-track album, 42 minutes. This thing blew my mind on impact. I think it is better than Schlegenheim. John L., the lyrics talking about people disobeying their cult, and just the imagery and the lyrics of that track are beautiful to me. And don't get me wrong, the sound on John L. as well insane. The melodies and the that part, beautiful. When it cuts everything out, it's just everything about it I love. Marlene Dietrich, a nice little acoustic slow builder that you definitely need after John L. Conjure Malaysia Patella, another absolute banger from Black Midi, and that ending is beautiful. Slow, probably one of my favorite tracks of the year. Just the climax that one reaches is insane. Diamond Stuff, beautiful. Dethroned, beautiful. Hogwash and Balderwash. I think this is the one where they actually included Black Midi music at the end, which is the first time I'm pretty sure that they've done that. Ascending Forth admittedly wasn't my favorite on first listen, but it's definitely grown on me. The 10-minute ender to this beautiful, more well-crafted album by Black Midi that I loved. All right, at the number 4 spot, we have Bottomless Pit from Death Grips. I just did a reaction to this one. So this one, I gotta be honest, is still a little bit blurry in my mind. I haven't really had I haven't had enough time to fully process it, but this thing is absolutely insane. This thing is absolutely insane. The 4-track start to this is the most headbanging, intense, aggressive, visceral thing that you'll hear, and it just continues after that. You got some more laid-back cuts in here as well. The lyrics are intriguing throughout the entire thing. The production is amazing, and I think this album really does a good job of combining the kind of raw and more aggressive vocals that I found to really enjoy on Ex-Military. It combines that with the genius level production and just the amazing production that the Money Store had. So for me, this is the perfect combination of the Money Store and Ex-Military, and you still got those catchy hooks in there, and it's just head-banging, visceral. It feels like a homeless dude just yelling at you for 30 minutes, and it's a feeling that you can't really get with any other album, in my opinion. All right, coming in at number 3 here, we have The Glow Part 2. Now, this was my introduction to The Microphones, a musical project by Phil Elverum. What did I say? Did I say that right? I don't know. But this thing is an hour 6 minutes long here, 20 songs, experimental folk, rock. There's just a bunch of stuff going on in this album. But what really impressed me with this album was just the intimacy of it. It's almost thrown together in a way that feels kind of amateurish, but it's done in a very skilled way and a very meticulous and thought out way. So it doesn't feel like just bad, but you still get that amateurish feel where you just feel really connected to this guy that's singing over these just beautiful. You have some acoustic guitar cuts, you have some just heavy rock songs, you have the closer here, My Warm Blood, which is, there's some piano ballads in this as well. There's My Warm Blood ends off with just this 8 minutes of just this single drum hit, and it honestly feels like, if you look into the lyrics of this thing, it feels like it's signifying kind of death, like someone's last heartbeats, and then you hear these this faint drum beat that you can barely hear of a previous song in this album, and that last track really just brought this whole thing to another level. I was kind of mind blown after listening to that last track. Just beautiful production throughout, really experimental stuff going on, and yeah, it's just really intimate. It seems like on first listen it's thrown together and kind of amateurish, but that amateurish quality is what makes it so beautiful. Yeah, The Glow Part 2. Classic. All right, we're moving on to the top 2 here. We got number 2, In Rainbows from Radiohead. This was my introduction to Radiohead, the first Radiohead album I listened to, and this thing is a 10 to me. This thing is a 10. There is no bad songs on this album. I'm pretty sure I was almost brought to tears by this album, especially by the track Nude. Nude is one of the most beautiful things I think I've ever heard. The closer videotape is another beautiful piece where you have these kind of delayed and syncopated, weird rhythmic kind of drums below this beautiful piano chords, and his singing, Tom York singing on top of that is just beautiful. The production throughout this whole thing is experimental. There's weird stuff going on throughout, but it all seems to stay and maintain this beautiful, serene kind of atmosphere. Obviously there is some some more in-your-face cuts like Body Snatchers. But for the most part, this is a really kind of depressing but also kind of peaceful at the same time album. And it's really laid back. It's really beautiful. In Rainbows, my introduction to Radiohead, and it's one of my favorite albums of all time, and number 2 on this list for albums that I've listened to this year. Beautiful. All right, we're moving on to number 1 here, and number 1 is one of the craziest things I feel like I've ever heard in my life. This is another album by Swans. You probably know what's coming. This is Swans with their 2014 release, To Be Kind. This is the follow-up to The Seer, an album I put in my honorable mentions. This thing is even a little bit longer than The Seer's, 2 hours, 1 minute. You have a track on here that's 34 minutes, and this thing is experimental. It just creates this visceral feeling that, other than Death Grips, I don't know if you can really have that level of just emotion and just like... Michael Gira's vocal delivery on this thing is insane. The lyrics are interesting throughout. The production is beautiful, and once again, the walls of sound that this thing creates just absolutely blows your mind. You have to be patient. This isn't an album you just put on for a fun little listen. This is like an event. This is an event. I haven't listened to this since I listened to it because it is 2 hours long, so I've only listened to it once, but to listen to this, you have to sit down and you have to really just like absorb everything that is happening, because it feels so meticulously crafted, but it also just feels so natural and just so visceral, and it feels like just the beginning of humanity and life in general, if that makes any sense at all. The builds on these songs once again reach these points where it's just ear-crushing, mind-bending levels of sound that you just can't, like, they just shake you. Like, I was just shook after this first listen. And the vocals on this thing, once again, are just amazing. So this is my number 1 album that I've listened to this year. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's beautiful in the most strange way possible. It's unsettling. It's horrific. It's insane. It's insane. This is one of the craziest things I feel like I've ever listened to. Yeah, it blows your mind. So if you guys haven't listened to this, once again, this is an event. You can't just put this on for fun. You have to really, it's headphone music for sure, in my opinion. You have to really just absorb everything that is happening and just think about why they're doing the things that they're doing, and just let it hit you. Just let it hit you and just be patient. So that's going to do it for this video. These are the top 5 albums that I listened to, with quite a bit of honorable mentions as well. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts on these albums down below, and yeah, hopefully we get to listen to some more great albums for the rest of the year, because we're what, halfway through 2021. So I wanted to do this video, get my top 5 albums out there, and these aren't of all time. These aren't my top 5 albums of all time. Once again, these are just top 5 albums that I've listened to this year. Shout out to Swans, one of my favorite things. Black Midi, the microphones, freaking Radiohead, just beautiful. Beautiful stuff. Beautiful stuff. That's gonna do it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to leave a like, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.